Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and I'm just relaxing here this weekend. Just working on several projects. Was doing some revisions on my book so that we can get wider distribution on Amazon, etc. So I was working on that. Also redid alexmerced.com, so that way it's much easier for you to find what you're looking for and make it a website where people can actually learn who I am much quicker, instead of it just being sort of like a bucket of links. So check out alexmerced.com. I think you'll like the new digs. But basically what I wanted to do is talk about the two topics that have been on my mind recently. But even before I do that, I just want to give huge props out to all my brothers and sisters in the Libertarian Party who've been doing an amazing effort, getting amazing publicity, doing park cleanups across the country. So if you're not familiar with the effort, what they've been doing, it started with an initiative by our membership director, Jess Mears, to clean up the park in Washington, D.C., the National Mall. Why? Because the government shut down. And the government shut down, which means the parks aren't getting cleaned up. And if there's anything that libertarians believe in, is that you don't have to wait for government to go fix things and do things. So if there's a problem, as such as a dirty park, well, we'll go do it. So libertarians are organizing across the country, going to national parks and cleaning up the trash to show that individuals have the power to make the changes that they need to make the world a better place. And that's a beautiful thing, a wonderful initiative that's been getting great publicity, and I have nothing but gratitude, admiration, and respect to all the individuals who've been on the ground making sure that happens. So thank you guys so much, and, respect. But basically what I've been doing also, or thinking about also, is that recently with the government shutdown, one of the big issues has been immigration. And what I want to do is talk about sort of the immigration issue. And I've done a couple videos on this topic today, or actually really podcast episodes. So if you listen to any of my podcasts, you'll hear the podcast on privatization on my podcast, the Alex Mercedcast, and on my show on the Launchpad Media Network, Nice Guys Finish Free. So I'm going to go back to the privatization topic after I talk about immigration. But I also did a video on immigration that should be up on my YouTube channel where I discuss the very thing I'm about to summarize right now. So for piece number one, immigration. And my view on immigration is, I, in general, am pro-immigration. I am pro the free movement of people. The main thing is because people always look at it the wrong way. They just think, more people means more competition for labor. But it also means more demand for labor because you have more consumers, you have more entrepreneurs. Also, there's the exchange of ideas, which means new ideas and there's all sorts of benefits to having more people. Okay, you can have bigger scales of economies of scale. There's all sorts of benefits to more people. Okay, so to me, more people is good. But then the issue becomes, what about illegal immigration? What about people who are not, or undocumented immigrants, people who are not going through the formal legal process and all the issues of people with border crossings and things like that? Well, in that kind of a situation, you have to take a look at what it actually is. It's a black market. And a black market forms, like all black markets, when a good or service is too hard to attain in a formal way. So you ban drugs, you ban sex work, you have black markets in sex work and drugs. In New York City, you make cigarettes really expensive by taxing it too much. People sell loose cigarettes under the table, which, when you take a look at the situation with Eric Garner, can cost lives. Black markets hurt people on both sides because not only do people who want to provide those goods and services in black markets put themselves at danger operating outside legal markets, they are oftentimes there's less quality control. Because at the end of the day, there's not really much legal recourse when you buy drugs from a black market drug dealer. So if they sell you some drug mixed with something else that does damage to you, you can't sue them. You probably don't even know how to find them. There's no transparency. There's none of the benefits of operating within a legal framework. Okay? So you end up with more violence, less quality control, less transparency, all these things. And that's what creates the negative outcomes, more so than the actual good or service itself. And that's the same thing with immigration. When you take a look at what's going on the border, that's black market immigration because we've made it too hard to immigrate through the formal process, and this creates danger for people on both sides. People have to go to black market coyotes who oftentimes die on the trip over, or people who are on the other side who deal with people who are just trying to rush in and end up in all sorts of altercations that were unnecessary if we just had a more open formal process. So in that case, really the solution is fixing the formal process by which immigration occurs legally. And walls, basically building a wall is like saying, hey, if we fund the DEA even more, somehow that's going to fix the drug problem. No, it just doesn't work. It's not that we aren't punishing people enough. Is that instead of punishing people, we need to be addressing the core concern, which is the prohibition, the underlying reason why the black market's forming, which is, again, lack of access. So that's my perspective on immigration. The second thing I want to talk about is privatization, because the discussion that's come up a few times is, people being scared when libertarians say let's privatize X, Y, or Z. People get scared that what's going to happen is that we'll just take some national park, sell it to the highest bidder, and then that person's going to turn it into a mall. Okay? And basically, they'll no longer be able to go to their favorite park and camp out. Now, in real life, in a real free market, you don't have to always do every transaction based on the highest bidder. People do in real life sell things in other ways. They sell to people who may share their values, and then they put covenants in the contract of the sale. So they'll say, hey, if you buy this from me, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And to say, hey, you buy this house from me, you can't alter it for a number of years, and put other sort of considerations on the property. So that's sort of possible. So one way a government can do that with like a park or even a whole department is by basically spinning it off into its own corporation, but doing a sort of very limited sale. Instead of just saying, hey, we're going to sell a bunch of shares to whoever the highest bidder is, and you can buy as many shares as you want, you could limit how many shares a person can buy. And the most important part is implement with what I call a negative dividend. It's like a dividend you would get on a stock where you get paid by the company, but instead you are paying the company. You are paying for the right to own the share. But again, you don't have to own the share. This is something you're voluntarily doing because you care about the underlying project. And by buying a share, you have this negative dividend where you have to pay a certain amount every year, kind of like a voluntary tax. But you also get voting power on who runs the park. You get voting power on new projects the park will undertake because you're someone who cares about the park. So basically, the people who care fund it, but the people who care also get a direct say in the governance of it. And you're going to get much better governance because right now, parks are shut down. Not because politics has anything to do with parks right now. No one's arguing or debating about parks. No one has a big political axe to grind on parks, but they're shut down. If they were spun off into independent agencies or independent bodies, independent corporations, where the shareholders funded it through that negative tax or that negative dividend, and basically they were able to vote directly on who runs the park, and it was just completely separated from other things going on in politics, they'd be open right now. They would still be funded, they would still exist, but you'd have more transparency, better governance, and it would be more voluntary. And you can do that. People can do that with their own individual businesses. They can do it with their own individual property voluntarily in a free market. So why not let the government explore sort of creative financing? Because when you issue those shares and sell those shares, that can create the initial funding for that project to go. And so instead of selling shares and giving the money to the government, that could be the money that keeps the park operating for a period of time while the structure kind of gets on its feet. So to me, privatization can be done in creative ways that can address the concerns of people who are worried about what happens when you just sell things, but also, again, bring the benefit of sort of market forces, of voluntarism, of voluntary exchange, of voluntary funding, and the accountability and transparency that brings. So these are the things that have been kind of on my mind lately, and if you listen to my podcast, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll be up to date with these. But I thought I would mention on a live stream, because I'm also trying to live stream more regularly as well. So you might be seeing this on Twitch, you might be seeing this on Twitter, you might be seeing this on YouTube itself. So if you're watching this, thank you. I'll be sharing it to all my other venues in a moment. But thank you guys very much. You guys have a great day and enjoy.